You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Welcome to Center of Light Radio with spiritual teacher, intuitive, musician, composer, and best-selling author of The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, your host, Keith Anthony Blanchard.
Welcome to Center of Light Radio. Yes, I am Keith Anthony Blanchard, Center of Light Radio, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. Strap in all ye spiritual astronauts as we launch for inner space. I'm going to repeat this message again. I am a blessed man to impart to you, the listening audience, information that was given to me by spiritual masters through a dear friend of mine. We did a session. Her name is Madra Gail Little. I had her on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I had a session the week before. Center of Light has now been given the go sign by those masters in full support, and that Center of Light is now going to become a super highway for conscious evolution. It was an amazing experience. I won't go into it. It was all recorded in the show a few weeks ago. Feel free to go to the archives to check out that particular broadcast. So the future of Center of Light Radio looks very, very fine from where I'm sitting. Also, middle of August, not sure just yet if it's going to be the second or the third week. We're going to have a God-realized man. Let me say that again and make sure that I deliver this point very clearly. A God-realized man who dedicated 21 years of his life, unbroken meditation, to Lord Dattatreya, and became the embodiment of that divine energy. So this man is God-realized. He can actually go within himself at this point right now and repeat back to you exactly what I'm talking about, wherever he is on the planet. And we're considering doing the broadcast live, but in video fashion. And this is going to be a very, very powerful show. And you can bet that I'm going to use every possible ounce of my energy to ask questions that we as the human race really need answers to. What is the condition of the world? What do we need to do to further our evolution along very nicely, effortlessly, and easily? I'm going to take some time. I'm going to be doing a lot of meditating. You can bet on that, about the particular questions and dialogue that I'm going to have with Swamji Viswayogi. Ooh, that name still ties my tongue. Swamji Viswayogi, God-realized man. Looking forward to that. Also, my alien human hybrid friend by the name of Nucleus 8 is considering doing an interview here on Center of Light Radio. And as I said before, it's likely it's going to be pre-recorded. We want to keep him safe from whatever people that might want to target out his location. So we're going to pre-record this show if he considers to do this, which I think he will, knowing Nucleus 8. I know him very, very well. Just a heads up on who Nucleus 8 is. It's someone I befriended some years ago, spent 4 years of my life with. And this person was able to do things in front of me, to me, with me, and through me on levels I've never known until those experiences happen. You can bet that this is a very, very authentic experience. Make sure you visit Center of Light Radio website. You do that by going to centeroflightradio.com. There you'll find archives of all my past shows. I've been here about 2 months now, and I'm grateful to the Inception Radio Network team for allowing me to be a part of this amazing, truly crystal clear platform. What a great team I have that I work with, Joe, Bob, and MJ. My dear thanks to you. Again, you go to Center of Light Radio. There you can find archives of all the show, as I said. You can also jump seat from there and go to Keith Anthony Blanchard website, keithanthonyblanchard.com, and find all my books, links to my movie, Do What You Love, A Path to Passionate Living, the movie about my life as a full-time musician, which I hear many musicians say, well, Keith, I want to do that. But well, you're talking to the wrong cat. Because I do it quite nicely and quite easily. People even say, Keith, I want to handle flowers, but I can't do that. Well, you need to go have a chat with the florist down the street. So this movie is really about you, empowering you with the tools that you need so you can live your best life and create the life that you desire, the life that you deserve. You can also go to dowhatyoulovethemovie.com and find the rental there. It's a $5 rent. Very, very well done by Blue Cast Productions out of New York City. Let me look at my notes. As always, I got tons of them. Tons. Also, my latest release, you can go fortheloveofgodbook.net. It's a book about my spiritual journey to South India to be with an avatar. Avatar translates to a divine descent, another God man. I took a tape recorder to India after he came to me in a dream and logged my entire miraculous experience for 2 weeks with this holy man, seeing things that most people would never even dream is even possible, much less believe that I'm telling you, that I actually had the opportunity to experience this firsthand, not only with my eyes, but with my ears, with my heart, and in my entire being, seeing the most amazing things that a person in a single lifetime could ever dream of having happen. Let's see. And there you will finally find my Do What You Love Forever course. If you go to keithanthonyblanchard.com, make sure you check all those out. To call into the show today, dial 888-919-2355, 888-919-2355 if you want to ask a question of myself or my awesome guest today, or if you just want to say, hi, Keith, whatever it is, make sure you call that number. Remember, if you're not at home and you want to hear your favorite show, you can always go to the App Store on your phone and download the Inception Radio Network app for free. Everything is at your fingertips. Chat room, listen, live link, news, podcast, much more. Life gets easy with Inception Radio Network and Center of Light Radio. There are many ways to connect to Center of Light Radio and the Inception Radio Network. Center of Light Radio and Inception Radio Network wants to give a shout out and a welcome aboard Professor Eric R. Williams with his show, Psychology's Outer Limits. I am looking forward to checking that show out myself. And that's going to happen on June 7th. And Patricia Baker with her new show, Supernatural Girls, on June 17th. Now it's time to get down to Center of Light Radio business. On the Center of Light Radio tonight, my guest is Anya Trahan. And my Cajun wants to come out in me and say Trahan, because there's a lot of Trahans in South Louisiana where I'm from, but where she's from, they pronounce it Trahan. So Anya Trahan is my guest tonight, and we're going to be talking about love, sex, and relationship wisdom from the Polyamory Many Loves movement offered in this practical guide to spiritual enlightenment. Let me tell you a little about my guest. Drawing on both personal experience and philosophical reflection, Dr. Anya describes how to cultivate intentional, I think that's a really key word there, intentional relationships, creative, non-conventional bonds that center on principles of honesty, compassion, forgiveness, and the celebration of desire. Through suggested meditations and activities for daily practice, we can evolve our consciousness by pursuing open, unconditional love in all our relations. Dr. Anya skillfully draws on the wisdom of previous generations of spiritual outlaws and polyamorous pioneers, yeah, right, as well as her own expansive personal experience to offer clarity on the sometimes puzzling concept of relationships as a spiritual path to a new generation of seekers. Dr. Deborah Taj Anapal, author of The 7 Natural Laws of Love and Polyamory in the 21st Century. Dr. Anya's book, Opening Love, is a vital addition to the literature on relationships, filling the current gap that exists around relationships as form of spiritual practice and a means of personal growth. The book presents a radical approach to relationships in comparison to current relationship books. Most of which focus on limited and problematic approach to achieving safety through rule-based systems. Instead, Dr. Anya's focus is on relational ethics, community building, and open communication, all of which seem much more likely to enable sustainable and mutual relationships. Dr. Meg Barker, author of Rewriting the Rules, an integrative guide to love, sex, and relationships. And finally, this beautiful book is both lucid, love that word, lucid and accessible, and will open doors that, whether or not the reader chooses to pass through them, will enhance their quality of being simply by being aware of them. Dr. Anya gently encourages the reader to attain and entertain new possibilities, as well as offering compassion to those who have already ventured into them. I recommend this book as an exploration of what it means to be human. I want to bring on board Dr. Anya Trahan. Welcome to the Center of Light Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to be here.
I'm glad you're here. I'm going to dive right into it. I'm a very, very open-minded individual. No judgment, at least in my conscious awareness right now, exists. And I'm all for opening. And I understand polyamory. I've lived it in my life, in early years of my life. But the intention, that's why I singled out that word, intention. Polyamory, from your perspective, your experience, to use a quote, the field that you play in, is not about fulfilling a part of yourself to validate yourself through other people. This is something that you have experienced, something you have explored, something that you work with in a very, very conscious way.
That is true. I think the first thing to understand about the polyamory movement is it's not new, like you said. It's been happening probably as long as humans have been alive. We all have stories of people that we know that have explored different types of relationships. And, from the 60s and 70s, free love, commune times. And then now, the polyamory movement, it was a term coined in the late 80s, early 90s, but really it's, sort of an updated version, a way to look at relationships that is in line with spiritual principles. The leading people in this movement are spiritually minded people. And while there is definitely a side of the movement that's more rational, logical, focused on, day-to-day mundane things, how to make these different kinds of relationships work. I would say the main thrust of the movement is this spiritual kind of, and I didn't even mean that as a pun. Thank you so much.
Understood.
Love that.
Thrust of the movement. I don't mean let me interject here.
Oh, sure.
My point is, and I just realized I've been pronouncing the word incorrectly. It's say that again. Polyamory.
Yeah, polyamory.
Polyamory. Okay. So now that we I'm the type of guy that jumps off the high diving board head first into the deep end of the pool. I move right through my stuff. And there's so many benefits of doing that. And I understand many people, probably most people, have reservations about moving into something. One, first, they don't understand. Two, they're not sure what they would do that if they allow themselves to entertain the idea. And then three, how is everybody else around them going to respond if they implement, or even, heck, if they even knew they were thinking such thoughts? That being said, I would like to weave this particular field or practice into the other aspects of the show, which is love and relationship, and how would we put all this together to achieve a goal of enlightenment, relationship with multiple people, not only in a sexual fashion, but how does all of this fit together to bring us closer to people to achieve a goal of expansion?
I identify as a light worker. That is probably the identity label that I like the most, and actually constantly sort of remind myself, because I'm involved in so many different things. I'm a spokesperson for Polyamory, but I'm also a relationship coach, Reiki Master. I do a lot of different things with people. I teach meditation. And there's a lot of different fields and different kinds of discussions that I'm involved in. And sometimes it can get a little chaotic, especially since I'm bringing in sexual discussions into spiritual discussions, which can be really frightening for a lot of people, really unnerving. So at the end of the day, when I lay my head down to sleep, or, in the morning when I wake up, I sort of do a review. What is the most important aspect, or the thing that I want to remember as the foundation for everything else that I'm doing? And that lightworker identity label is what is in my heart. So essentially what I did through coming up with this angle on discussing polyamory is talking about intentional relationships. So intentional relationships is not a term that I invented. It's a word that is tossed around a lot in different kinds of communities. The pagan community, the BDSM kink community, they are all about talking about intentional relationships. I don't even actually know where that term came from, but it's sort of common lingo. And the goal of the book, Opening Love, was basically to use the lessons that I've learned as an openly polyamorous person, as a relationship coach, as a spiritual teacher, and translate them for people who are at least open to the idea of living a spiritual life. So that was basically my target audience for the book. And in terms of how does all this fit together, so the term polyamory itself, it comes from Greek and Latin roots. So poly meaning many, Greek, Latin, amory, love. So it translates to mean many loves. And that's well and good, actually, for most people at a certain level, if you don't incorporate the intimate sexual aspect to it. Because if you think about it, a lot of people are raised as children with the concept of, you should love all the people in your family. You should love all your brothers and sisters. You should love your parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents. We have this notion of love, and having it be ideally like an equal love. So, your parents saying, I love all of you the same. You're talking to the children. I love all of you the same. I don't play favorites. We're all a family. We all have this commitment to each other to support each other and help each other grow. And so if you, for the moment, strip back the implications about sexuality, then the concept of many loves isn't threatening. It's, okay.
I'm very aware of that because, no judgment, I was raised Catholic. and just being out in the world, I know how society looks at such a subject. That being said, how have people responded to your book, Opening Love? How do people respond to you in person when you do your talks or your classes? How do they digest that idea? Are they able to take it in with an open mind, or do you see the 51% of them, still holding on to fear about such ideas?
The people that find me are ready to find me.
Right.
So I live in a very, very small, conservative Midwestern town. Where everybody knows each other. You go to the grocery store, you can't not bump into two or three people that you know. And, so it's a very small place. And when I started thinking about coming out with the book, I was hesitant because I thought, wow, this is a really small town. I don't know what's going to happen. And to be honest, I'll say the negative first, but then I'll dwell more on the positive, which is that, since the book was released about a month ago, I have been actually terminated from 2 employment positions that I had with 2 organizations in the town in which I live. So,
Did you expect that?
No, no, I did not. I thought the worst that would happen was gossip and maybe losing some friends, because when I first came out as polyamorous, just in my personal life, I lost a number of friends. I had issues with my family come up where they were very not understanding. So I thought, well, it's just going to be like social repercussions in my personal life. I did not really think that it would affect my professional life, which, looking back, maybe I was a bit naive, and that's okay, because I'd rather be naive than cynical, I suppose. But to focus on the positive more, what's come out of me being openly polyamorous in my personal life, and then transitioning that into doing workshops, and then this book coming out. And I've been doing readings and things in this town since it came out. It's been amazing, because at least every day I get an email or a Facebook message from someone who says, "Thank you so much. I've been thinking about the stuff that you wrote about for years, since I was a kid." And
so there are more people who are actually open to this, thinking about this, and probably implement this in their life. And they just needed someone like you to validate them that this can be used as an actual system for conscious expansion, better relationships, yada, yada, yada.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. I show up at Dr. Anya's class. How do you go into your presentation about love, sex, and relationship? If you would, can you give me, can you weave that for me, your opening statement of introduction to your class?
Well, the main thing that I open with usually is talking about how we all are culturally conditioned to have very limiting beliefs about what we can do with other people. So we have these concepts and frameworks in our vocabulary that are not very conducive to spiritual growth. So, for example, I go into a discussion of terminology. One of the most awesome, helpful things about the polyamory movement is it gives people a new vocabulary. For example, there is the very ubiquitous concept of breaking up, right? So-and-so broke up with so-and-so, and I broke up with this person, and it's usually a negative conversation. Yes. People feel like they have to pick sides. They have to regret the past. Oh, I feel like this was wasted time with this person. And it's awful. It's really awful. Well, the polyamory movement has, it's not necessarily coined a new word because the word was already around, but the word transition/transitioning. The concept is that you can change your status with someone, make an informed agreement between 2 people, and think of it as a transition from one form to the next. So in Buddhism, we have the concept of impermanence. So the idea behind impermanence is that everything changes. You cannot get past that. So even if you're in a marriage and you make vows, and you do stay together, let's say ideally for a lifetime, which is what you promised to do, even then you still have the reality of living life in a body. You have change. You go through different jobs, you move maybe, each person goes through different evolutionary processes, so that by the end of the marriage, maybe at the time one or both people are dying on their deathbed, those people are not the same at all.
Right. So we're actually all polyamorous. We all are. It's just the fact whether you choose to engage in a more personal, intimate way with your partners, because we all have many loves in our life.
Yes, exactly. That is one of the things that I talk about like a broken record, in that we are all polyamorous.
Right,
we love in so many different ways. what polyamory does, it's an egalitarian-based mindset. So it's about coming together into a community. So it's one of the issues in our current culture is a feeling of isolation. And, that's been a problem for humans for a really long time now. And it seems to be getting worse, actually, not better. That's just my opinion. Polyamory brings people together in beautiful ways. So the connections don't even necessarily need to be sexual. So, for example, at one point, and I talk about this in my book, Opening Love, I was involved in a quad. So it was myself, my husband, Andrew, his partner, Cordelia, and then Cordelia's other partner, which I won't name his name because he's not fully out. And it was the four of us. Now, I wasn't necessarily involved with Cordelia in the way that Andrew was. And, Cordelia's partner wasn't involved with Andrew the way that he was involved with Cordelia. We all had different types of interactions, but what we did is we came together for a period of time and we helped each other out with just mundane stuff, grocery shopping, support. You always knew that you had someone to call if something was difficult and you needed advice. We were there for each other. So that's one of the nice things about the polyamory movement is it's not all about the sex. It does recognize that sex between consenting adults is a beautiful, uplifting experience, but it is not all about the sex.
Yeah, we have carried at least so much stuff surrounding sex, the dirt of it, the negatives of it. And as much as everyone, I would think just about everyone enjoys the act of it, even the idea of it, just the thought it may cross someone's mind during the day. But there's so much baggage that seems to accompany that particular engagement. And, again, as I said, growing up Catholic, it wasn't so much about that, but being so blasted, inundated with ideas and beliefs, surrounded by sex, it makes it more difficult for a person who's in a monogamous relationship even to let go and relax and enjoy yourself blissfully with your partner.
I would agree with that totally.
And, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm always one for looking at my fear, taking that deep breath and stepping right into it and okay my way through it. Because once you cross that threshold, you're going to feel funky for a little while. It's going to feel icky. And next thing you know, 30 seconds later, you know what? I'm okay. I'm truly okay. And a minute later, I'm really okay. Next thing you know, you move through a pattern, a block, a wall, and it's done. You're done with it for the rest of your life. So the reason I decided that I really want to talk at least some about this particular practice is because it doesn't mean you have to move into this particular experience. We're not suggesting that you do. What we are saying is if you open your mind to the idea only for the sake of removing that which is blocking you in your life, just to have intimacy, however you choose to employ that in your life, can be so expansive to your own consciousness, to your own well-being, to your own spiritual growth.
Amen. I think, go say more if you want to.
I think we're done with the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's all about removing the fear, and we always assign not only not only people, in our life a role, and we expect them to carry that role out. Now, this is the role I've given you. We also do that with body parts. This particular body part has this particular function and that function only. It's just a body part. It's no more important than your finger, your toe, your head, your ear. It's all the same thing. It's amazing the power that we have in when we assigned an idea, a belief, a suggestion from the outside influence that this means that and means that only. And it really chokes us and it really stifles our growth.
It's really about charting your own course through life. And granted, we are to a certain extent constrained, or we think we're constrained by certain things like money. or prestige or reputation. However, if we do open our minds a little bit, we can see that we do have wiggle room for how we want to make decisions. I mean, I host a polyamory support group at my home, and there's people that come that aren't out at all. And in fact, they're super closeted in that they're a little bit even nervous coming to the group, but they do because they want to just hang out with people who are cool, open-minded about sexuality, not judgmental. You know, you're welcomed here. If you come in the door, you're completely welcomed. But even so, like, even though they're not out, there's no judgment on my part. My partner, he helps me host this support group. We're not saying, constantly saying you should come out. I mean, in fact, we never really say that. We only really sort of mention it to the people who are kind of at the edge and we can tell. And we're like, well, if you came out, these might be the consequences and you need to think about it, and, you won't die. And, worst case scenario, here are the possibilities, but there is room for how you want to live your life. Even if you want to practice polyamory, have different kinds of relationships, you don't have to be all out about it. You don't have to do what I'm doing and write a book about it. You just practice it and you kind of keep it quiet, and that might be what you want to do. So yeah, and I love what you were saying about sexuality, about body parts, because some of the people, really, a lot of the main spokespeople for polyamory are involved with the sacred sexuality movement, which essentially breaks apart our notions about what sex is. So yeah, like you were saying, like certain body parts are considered, deemed to be more sexual, less sexual. And, in workshops that I've taught or been to, some of the, here's an example of a practice, partner up with someone who's sit next to you in the group and just spend 10 minutes taking your index finger and slightly rubbing it on their elbow, but with the intent to make the other person that you're touching, feel as awesome as possible. But that's the limitations. You can only touch their elbow. And you wouldn't even believe by the end of the 10 minutes how awesome both people feel from that practice.
So that would be sort of a safe zone, a starting point. And it doesn't mean you have to carry it further. It's a starting point to help open one's mind to the idea it's okay to touch somebody. It's okay, providing, of course, both intentions are aligned.
Yes, absolutely.
And you see, and again, I'll go back to the beginning of the show. When I was sent by Maria, a suggested guest for this show, I read your bio and I did some research and I had some hesitation. I really did. And because I did, it pushed me even further to say, this is a bunch of whatever, and is more the reason I'm going to do it. Because this show is deemed center of light. And if there's knowledge to be gleaned here through this medium, this platform, Center of Light Radio, that helps expand people into greater ideas, not necessarily to join such a movement, but to give you the information. Information equals power, equals knowledge, equals bliss. If you get that information, you can best know how to meander your own life with choices. It might help even alleviate some of the judgment you have towards people such as yourself and in the movement about their life and the choices that they make for themselves.
Thank you for having the bravery and the courage and kind of doing that, because I sensed the hesitation and I thought to myself, well, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and that's okay, because that's happened, with other, radio programs that have almost happened and didn't, and that's okay because it wasn't meant to be at that time. So, but I appreciate that a lot. And
You're welcome.
Yeah. I think that one of the reasons people end up shying away from it is because it is confusing. There is the similarity in words, for example, of polyamory to polygamy. Now, I don't want to diss polygamy, but it is a very specific
the agenda is totally different. It is totally
for the most part.
A different thing altogether.
Yeah. And, while I don't know any polygamous people, and I've heard and I've read that there are situations where the gender dynamics are actually egalitarian, I do know that for the most part, sexuality, within the polygamy is viewed as pretty much like just have sex to make babies, and it's still sexuality is deemed to be shameful and kind of whereas polyamory is more of a sex positive approach. So there is that kind of issue, and people they're uninformed about what polyamory is because it is so new, even though myself, I've been out since 2010, and even between then and now, just seeing the media coverage increase about the subject of polyamory or sacred sexuality has, more than doubled. I don't know the statistics, but it's incredible. So, but even with that, it's still pretty much unknown in the mainstream public. So yeah, it's hard to tackle a topic that you don't really know where the person is coming from. Is this like a fanatical, weird fringe person? So that makes sense.
And it's amazing how the most amazing thing that manifests on this planet happens through sex, and that is human birth. And it's wild, to use the word, how we've collected all this dust, all these funky things that attach. Even in my own life, I can see there are aspects of myself as I look towards my past. When I would do such things, it was always to fill a hole inside of myself. Now, living through all of that and being where I'm at now currently in my life, I see the nonsense that I lived and my approach as to why. We are at the bottom of the hour. Would you give out your contact information so our listening audience can find out more about you, your movement, and your book?
Yes. dranya.net, so DRANY.NET. And you can find my book, Opening Love, Intentional Relationships and the Evolution of Consciousness, on Amazon.
I love that. I love that phrase, intentional relationships. There's a clarity, there's an understanding. I'd like to move a little more into the aspects of love and relationship. How do we begin to create better, loving relationships in our life? We think that we go to the store, we accidentally bump our shopping cart into someone, we meet them, or we go to church to meet someone, or we go to bars to meet someone. I've always had an issue with someone saying, I am attracted to that person. For me, that is not a good place to start, because it's almost as if we're already setting up the idea, I need this person to fulfill some empty part of myself, versus finding someone, meeting someone that you were just so amazingly compatible with, and then beginning the relationship from that particular place.
Yes. We have the same views. All right. Basically, I'll give you a concrete example of this. So when I met one of my current partners, Robert, and I discussed this in Opening Love in detail, I wasn't attracted to him. He presented as just, this nice seeming man. We, got together. We we had the same friend group, so we kept showing up at the same events, and it was kind of funny. And then what happened is we just actually then started to get to know each other, and so it wasn't based on that initial lust, it was a deeper connection that evolved. And I think that when you come together with someone, not out of, like you said, not out of a lack, and not looking to have that person fulfill you because you're not worthy alone, but you rather come together out of this sort of blissful recognition of, oh, if we get together, our lives could be this much more awesome because
Yes.
It's already awesome.
And like you said, because you were not attracted to this person, there was nothing superficial in the way, and you were able to, well, as time went by and unfolded in its season, was able to experience the core of not only the person, but the potential that lay there between you and this person. Perfect example. Excuse me. I had a dear friend of mine. Some years ago, I was playing music in a loud, smoky, alcohol-filled rock bar, which I love. She was having some issues, and the guy that she was somewhat with, they're standing at the bar. They weren't really dating. They just kind of went there together with the possible idea that something may develop. He was a good-looking guy. I mean, he was built, and he had all this bling-bling to him as a person as to why a young lady would be attracted to such a guy if we're following the old paradigm. That being said, he decided he was going to go to the restroom, and as he did, the guy next to her on her left taps her on her arm and says, "Excuse me, can I buy you a drink?" And keep in mind, I knew both guys. I knew both gentlemen. Without judgment, I knew guy on the right, I knew guy on the left. And she's been complaining to me in times before that, "Keith, I'm really looking for this type of guy who blah, blah, blah. And that's really what I want in my life." But yet she's salivating at John Doe on the right and Jack Doe on the left. I'm like, that's the guy you want, the guy on the left. But he was invisible to her. And I mean that he was truly invisible. She could literally not see him there. And so she was interested in the glitz, the glam, the bling bling, and all this, the outsides. I'm not saying the other guy didn't have heart and that he was not a solid individual, but I know her and her being enamored and just attracted to the gentleman, when the guy truly on her left was the one that she's been praying for, or at least his type.
Right. I think a lot of people are still stuck in that shallow mindset of just looking at the physical appearance, as if that is the main motivating factor of whether you're getting in a relationship with someone. And I'm so out of that paradigm that I sometimes forget that that's still the paradigm most people are working under. So, and I actually was speaking with a friend the other day, and I said, "Do you think that you have the capability to love anyone and everyone?" Because I myself have been thinking about that. I was, just as like a hypothetical experience, imagining someone who, by the normative standards, would not be attractive in any way. In fact, maybe most people would say they're ugly or even like disgusting or something like that. I was thinking, trying to, picture different scenarios in my head and thinking, could I fall in love with someone like that? And I was thinking, yeah, I think I could. And then we were having this conversation, and I asked the person, and he said, yeah, I definitely think I could. And that's another aspect of the evolving consciousness in relationships, where we're getting to the root of the person. That it really, it's sort of a cliche of like, it's not it's not the cover of the book that counts, it's what's inside or whatever. But it's true that is what matters. And, when the initial spark dies away, in the polyamory movement, by the way, we have a term called NRE, which is new relationship energy. And it's the idea that in the beginning of a relationship, you're basically like insane because you're so in love and you have all these, sparks, and everything is just new and exciting and shiny. Anyway, when the NRE dies off, which it always does, you settle over time into more of a, less intense situation. Well, what about looks then? Does it really matter? I don't think looks matter over time. You basically come to love the person for who they are inside. And I'm really glad you brought that up.
That changes the whole game.
Yeah.
When you love someone inside for who they are, in fact, the level of depth just goes to the infinite.
It really does. It really does. There's been moments, with different partners that I've had that we've just, been looking in each other's eyes. And I've actually passed out once from my partner and I. We were like looking at each other in the shower, just looking at each other. We weren't even really, touching each other even. And I saw like looking into his eyes, I saw the beginning. Maybe it's not the beginning, but it was like sort of the moment of the universe where everything started to expand outward. And I saw how him and I fit into that. And then I felt everything else, and just, it was all kind of in this flash. And I literally like fell over. And that, that kind of connection, I haven't had that quite same experience with other people, but I've had that same sort of like cosmic feeling with so many different people. And, an aspect of why people like to come to my workshops is because, when I'm with people, I really do my best to look almost through them and see them.
And even looking to someone's eyes, if you both lock, it can get a little intimidating. And you may do it for 15 seconds and get used to it after 30 seconds. And next thing you know, you find yourself in a zone, and all of a sudden something else begins to crop up. And it's a beautiful mirror for one to be able to see themselves and where they have the hang-ups, and what is it that you are not exposing, but what is it that you are afraid to let be revealed?
Yes. I've
and it doesn't mean you have to share with the other person, just your own acknowledgement of what we're trying to keep down, what we keep trying to suppress. Of course it's going to come up. You're making yourself available by looking into the window of someone else's soul.
Right.
And that reflection is automatically going to cough up the dark.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Out of my research that I did to bring you into the show, I never found out or never saw, what is your doctor's degree in, if I may ask?
Sure. It's a doctorate in English. So not in, psychiatry or anything medical. It's English. The nickname came about because around the time I was getting my doctorate in the English, I work with healing with people through Reiki. And so they were kind of joking with me that, oh, you're a doctor now, but you're not like, quote, a real doctor, not like an MD, even though I was, helping them with different physical problems that they had. And so they started calling me Dr. Anya, and it was sort of cute. And like, I don't know, a part of me thought at first that it was too, I don't know, I guess there was a part of me that didn't like the nickname, but then a part of me thought, well, that's kind of catchy. So it sort of just stuck. And yeah, it was in English, but my dissertation that I had to complete for my degree, I chose to write about the polyamory movement. And I was the first person in my field to do that, or my subfield rather. My subfield within English was rhetoric and writing. So looking at how language has the potential to shape people's entire worldviews. So people have sort of the negative connotation of the word rhetoric, but the way that I studied it was looking at how words can empower people, and how if we like really dig down through cultural conditioning, we can use words to create positive change for people. So I looked at the polyamory movement in my dissertation, and I dug deeper and tried to show how the polyamory movement has a lot with actually the gay and lesbian social movement as well, the LGBT, queer movement, how those things are really related, and how we can learn some of the lessons that our friends in the gay and lesbian movement have learned in the past 20 or 30 years and apply that to the polyamory movement.
So let me ask you this. When people are in relationship, I think what often comes into play is a lack of dialogue surrounding the subject of sex, because both people have ideas of what it takes to help them catapult into bliss. Mm-hmm. But they're so scared to death to share that with their partner, believing that it would offend them, make them nervous, make them leave the relationship. but not only about sex, but also about the relationship itself. And sex is I guess you would say the most involved expression of the relationship. But I've always said that if you can take the biggest piece of the equation and make peace with that, everything falls suit underneath. Mm. How do we develop a dialogue with partners with taboo subjects?
We have to trust each other first. So if the people in the relationship don't automatically trust each other first, you need to start building that trust first before you go into those scary territories like sex. So I would say there just needs to start being conversations about honesty itself. How can we be honest with each other? How can we not try to manipulate each other to believe that we're someone that we're not? So, a lot of times in a marriage, people start just really subtly hiding things from their spouse that they think if their spouse were to find out, their spouse wouldn't think they were such a great person anymore. I mean, so for example, like someone has an issue with drinking and they went to the bar and then they come home and their spouse says, were you at the bar? And they said yes. But then they lie. They say, oh, I only had 2 drinks, but maybe they had 10 drinks, So because they're afraid of, if they're honest, that they won't be seen as so awesome by the other person. So first starting with conversations about how can we be more honest every single day. And that's tough because our whole society is built around dishonesty. I mean, we're told to wear a mask all the time. So that's tough. So I think starting with the honesty component of making that an intention for your relationship. When you've practiced and experimented with that for a while, then you can go into the more scary subjects. I think that people, what they're really excited about when they reach out to me and other teachers on these subjects is knowing that in the future, what they can reach for. So if they're on a spiritual path, what could the future look like if we really use our relationships in this very intentional way in order to evolve our spiritual growth. And they're not just relationships just to bring us pleasure or, getting away from loneliness, but we're really using them intentionally for that spiritual purpose. People learn about the concept of compersion. Compersion is a term that was coined by the poly movement, and it means the opposite of jealousy. So compersion is when you actually are happy for your partner no matter what.
Yes. Yes.
So, when my partner, for example, recently said, I'm falling in love with this other person who I knew, we were friends, my reaction, instead of automatically being jealousy, was actually, I got so excited because I could see what a great thing that was for both of those people. And then me too, because now I get to spend more time with this other cool person. And so it benefits everyone. So thinking, even if you are nowhere near feeling like you can feel compersion, if your lover loves someone else too and is honest about it, to know that it's possible is really, really freeing.
Yes, it is, because I've been practicing that for a very, very long time. I'm very much aware that, I have no control that when you went to the supermarket yesterday, that the guy or the woman behind you was going to say hello. None of us had the idea that the meeting was going to happen, but it did. And the fact that it did, things have now changed. In fact, if that's where you want to go and you're happy there, here's $5 for gas.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that it won't move me inside to tempt me to go into that place of jealousy, because I have work to do. We have work to do. But it's the allowing and the support and giving the blessings to the other person to move forward and do what you need to do to find your life filled with bliss.
Exactly. And I think it's important to also bring up the fact that people like me, we're not trying to say that monogamy is bad. or that monogamy is a bad choice. It's definitely an option, but what I'm trying to do, and other leaders in the poly movement are trying to do, is bring awareness to the fact that it is an option, though, because people don't even see it as an option for relationships. It's just the way you do it. There's no question about it. Well, no, there's a lot of people that are doing it differently. So I have nothing against monogamy. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are monogamous who are very proud of it. And, it's awesome. Like, the idea of just investing so intensely, especially that erotic energy over the course of a lifetime just between two people. I mean, there's things in monogamy that you can't do if you're poly. It's just true. You can't. So, but yeah, I don't want to make a situation where monogamy is the new bad thing or the thing we're fighting against. I really have a passion for helping people.
You're just passionate about your path. And I understand that. Someone asked me, Keith, do you have a formula for world peace? And of course, Keith does. I said, leave everyone else alone. Just leave them alone. Mm-hmm. Let people be people. Do it without judgment. People will naturally congregate in their own compartments and move to that part of the city, and everybody lives blissfully, lives in light, lives in joy, lives in expansion. This has always been my dynamic. We see people who would obviously judge you in your work, or people who judge me in my work, which is not so, to use a word, exaggerated or intense, or exaggerated and intense because of the idea. And how you and I had the dialogue on the phone the other day. We talked about this is not without compassion for how other people feel. I didn't want to do the show imposing this particular idea on people's walking on their toes, because it's done with the idea of how people feel about such concepts. And I'm glad you came on to enlighten not only the listening audience, but me, surrounding this particular movement that you feel passionate is so powerful in your life. So thank you for joining us. We're coming to the top of the hour. I appreciate you being here in Center of Light Radio. Would you leave us with a final thought?
Oh, absolutely. If you feel inspired by anything that I said, I would just urge you to make honesty a core value in your life that you're really striving towards daily. And you talk to your partner, family members, friends, colleagues about how to bring honesty into relationships, because without it, I don't see that we can strive towards evolving our consciousness. So it's definitely crucial. So please, talk about honesty.
Anya, what is God to you? If it can be described, what is it to you?
Myself and everyone.
Very well said. Thank you for joining me here on Center of Light Radio. Would you give out your contact information once again to our listening audience for those who may be interested, even just to learn more about the idea, and also could possibly put some fears that they may have to rest, but also may help those who have ideas or curiosities about it? What is your contact information?
Yeah, actually, I'm looking to hear from just people sharing their stories or asking me questions. So if you want to contact me via email, that would be awesome. So anyatrahan@gmail.com. So ANYATRAHAN@gmail.com. And then you can find me on my website, dranya.net, DRANYA.net. I do relationship coaching sessions, spiritual guidance sessions with people via Skype or in person. And I'm really just looking to connect with people. And also, if you're interested in learning about like networking, if you are poly and you're out there and you want to reach out, I can give you tips on different support groups, or there's so many different online communities that I can point you to for resources. So please get in touch with me and I will facilitate, whatever I can to help you out with that.
Anya, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Keith.
Everyone, Anya Trahan, Center of Light Radio. Next week on the show, we're going to have Susanna Furr, and she is going to enlighten you. She's going to expand you. She's an amazing guest, full of knowledge, wisdom, and power. Dear friend of mine, I do suggest your presence here for that particular show. What a very different subject for me. I'm glad I had it. I walked through the idea of my uncomfortableness, not for myself really, but how it would make people feel. And I decided that's an illusion as well. And we're going to handle this with kid gloves and give it the attention and the respect that it truly deserves for bringing joy into certain people's lives. People live lives by their own choices, and we all have what we want for ourselves in our scope. And I do support you in moving further into that direction. And you can do that, shameless plug, by going Do What You Love, a path to passionate living. You can do that by going to dowhatyoulovethemovie.com, and it will support you in all that you see as wanting to call to yourself to bring infinite bliss into your lives. Again, Susanna Furr is going to be here next week. I do appreciate your attendance. And one more announcement would be in the very near future, Swamiji Viswa Yogi is going to be here. We're going to hopefully do a live video broadcast with this God-realized man. I've interviewed him before. Wow. And hopefully we can get my alien human hybrid friend Nucleus 8 here on the show in the very near future. Keith Anthony Blanchard here. Remember, when you lay down at night, you have nothing to do, you might as well do something in that nothing. And as you breathe consciously, God breathes life into man. And that energy begins to move. That is your spirit that you're feeling. When you feel that buzz, you're feeling your light, you're feeling your vibration. And who you really are lies in that breath, just behind that breath. So move that breath. Always remember to ease into bliss, spread the light. Good evening.